Something absolutely shocking happened after Caitlin Clark won the biggest award of her career, and nobody's talking about the real reason why ESPN tried to turn her into a villain. But before we dive into this explosive story, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to expose what really went down at the ESPYs that has the entire WNBA world in chaos. Picture this: the biggest night in sports, the 2025 ESPYs at the legendary Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. Every major athlete is there except one, the woman who just won WNBA Player of the Year. Caitlin Clark wasn't even in the building to accept her award, but what happened next would send shockwaves through the sports world that nobody saw coming. When ESPN analyst Ari Chambers accepted the award on Clark's behalf, she dropped a bombshell that left everyone speechless. She said Clark's villain origin story has started, and she loves to play into it. Wait, what? The same Caitlin Clark, who single-handedly revolutionized women's basketball, is now being called a villain? This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. This was calculated, and the backlash was immediate. But here's where it gets even crazier. While Clark was battling through her third injury of the season, sitting on the bench with tears in her eyes, comedian Shane Gillis was on stage making jokes about her that had the entire audience groaning. He said when Caitlin Clark retires from the WNBA, she's going to work at a Waffle House so she can continue doing what she loves most: fist-fighting black women. The joke was so controversial that even the live audience didn't know whether to laugh or gasp. The timing couldn't have been worse. Clark had just suffered another groin injury, missing her 11th game of the season. She's been carrying the weight of an entire league on her shoulders, bringing in record-breaking viewership numbers that the WNBA has never seen before. Her game against the Liberty pulled in 2.8 million peak viewers. Her matchup with rookie phenom Paige Bueckers drew 2.5 million. These aren't just numbers. These are historic milestones that prove she's the biggest draw the league has ever had. But instead of celebrating her success, something darker was brewing behind the scenes. Remember when fellow WNBA players voted her as only the 9th best all-star guard, despite her receiving over 1.2 million fan votes? That's more votes than the entire league got combined just 2 years ago. Dick Vitale himself called it absurd, and he wasn't alone. The disconnect between how fans see Clark and how her peers view her has never been more obvious. What makes this even more interesting is what happened after she won the ESPY. Her own team's general manager, Amber Cox, took almost 12 hours to congratulate her. 12 hours? Fans immediately noticed and called her out. One fan wrote, "You have time to congratulate CC? I thought you were too busy to give a damn about her. You can't keep her healthy or build a championship team around her." The frustration from Clark's supporters is reaching a boiling point. But let's talk about what Ari Chambers really meant with that villain comment. She later tried to explain herself on social media, saying Clark plays with fiery fierceness and is the daughter of Diana Taurasi. The explanation made even less sense than the original comment, since when does being competitive make you a villain? Michael Jordan was competitive. Kobe Bryant was competitive. Were they villains too? The truth is, there's something much deeper happening here. Clark has become a lightning rod for controversy in ways that have nothing to do with her actual play on the court. She's averaging 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds per game this season. She's leading the league in assists. She broke the single-season All-Star voting record with over 1.2 million votes. By every measurable metric, she's not just succeeding, she's dominating. Yet the narrative being pushed is that she's somehow the bad guy. ESPN personalities can barely bring themselves to congratulate her. When they announced her ESPY win, the 4 female analysts on the red carpet all said okay in unison. That's it. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of her historic season. Just okay. The lack of enthusiasm was so obvious that fans immediately started calling it out on social media. Meanwhile, Lisa Leslie, a WNBA legend, revealed something disturbing about Clark's injury situation. She said groin injuries never truly go away. You just learn to manage and play with them. Think about that for a second. Clark is being expected to carry an entire league while playing through an injury that may never fully heal. And instead of support, she's getting labeled as a villain. The racial dynamics at play here can't be ignored either. Sheryl Swoopes recently said on Gil's Arena that she has zero hate for Clark's game, but doesn't appreciate the ugly nastiness that comes with Caitlin Clark. She's referring to some of Clark's fans who have crossed the line with racist comments toward other players. But here's the thing. Clark has repeatedly condemned this behavior. She's credited Black players for laying the foundation of the WNBA. She told Time magazine that elevating Black women is a beautiful thing. So why is she being held responsible for the actions of people she can't control? Why is she the villain when she's done nothing but try to grow the game? The answer might lie in something former NBA player Rashad McCants said. He declared that the face of the NBA is Caitlin Clark, not the WNBA, the NBA. That's how big her impact has become. And that level of influence comes with a target on your back. What's happening to Clark isn't new in sports. When Tiger Woods dominated golf, he faced similar backlash. When Serena Williams revolutionized tennis, she dealt with constant criticism. The difference is that Clark is facing this in real time, in the social media age, where every slight is amplified and every controversy goes viral. The Indiana Fever posted a one-word reaction to her ESPY win: deserved. That's all they could muster for their franchise player who has transformed their organization from irrelevant to must-see TV. Before Clark arrived, Fever games were barely watched. Now they're selling out arenas across the country. The economic impact she's had on the franchise is estimated in the tens of millions. Yet, they can barely acknowledge her achievements. But here's what really has fans upset. While Clark was being mocked at the ESPYs, while she was being called a villain by ESPN, while she was sitting injured on the bench, she was still breaking records. Her All-Star Captain's Draft with Nafisa Collier was one of the most watched WNBA events ever. Even injured, even criticized, even labeled as a villain, she's still moving the needle like no one else can. The comparison to past controversies is inevitable. Remember when Dijonai Carrington allegedly poked Clark in the eye during the playoffs? Social media went wild with conspiracy theories. Or when Brittany Griner appeared to make controversial comments toward Clark. Each incident becomes a flashpoint in this ongoing narrative that Clark is somehow the problem rather than the solution. What's most frustrating for Clark's supporters is the double standard. When other players get physical with her, it's just part of the game. When she responds, or her fans defend her, suddenly she's promoting a toxic culture. When she breaks records, it's because of privilege. When she struggles with injuries, it's proof she can't handle the physicality of the league. She literally cannot win in the court of public opinion, even while winning on the actual court. The WNBA finds itself at a crossroads. Clark has brought unprecedented attention to the league. Viewership is up 14% from last season. Merchandise sales are through the roof. Young girls are picking up basketballs because they want to be like Caitlin Clark. Yet within the league itself, there seems to be resistance to embracing her as the face of the franchise. Even her injury situation reveals the complicated dynamics at play. Her coach, Stephanie White, has been criticized for not protecting Clark enough from overly physical play. Fans point to numerous instances where Clark has been targeted with hard fouls that go beyond normal competitive play. Yet when these incidents are brought up, the response is always that it's just basketball. The ESPN villain comment is particularly telling because it reveals how media narratives are shaped. Chambers tried to walk it back by saying Clark plays with the tradition and fierceness of the all-time greats. But that's not what she said initially. She specifically used the word villain, and words matter. They shape perception, they create storylines, and right now the storyline being pushed is that Caitlin Clark, despite all evidence to the contrary, is somehow bad for the WNBA. This couldn't be further from the truth. Clark has done more for women's basketball in 2 years than most players do in entire careers. She's brought new fans to the sport. She's inspired a generation of young players. She's proven that women's basketball can be must-see TV when marketed properly. Yet she's being treated like an outsider who needs to be put in her place. The Shane Gillis joke at the ESPYs was just another example of how Clark has become a convenient target. Making light of the physical altercations she's been involved in, framing them as her fighting Black women, reduces complex situations to harmful stereotypes. It ignores the fact that Clark has been on the receiving end of most of these incidents. It ignores her consistent message of respect for all players regardless of race. What's really happening here is a clash between old and new. Clark represents a new era of women's basketball, one where games are televised nationally, where players can make real money, where young fans pack arenas to see their favorite stars. Some within the establishment seem threatened by this change, preferring the old ways where the WNBA was a niche sport for diehard fans only. But progress doesn't go backward. The Caitlin Clark effect is real and it's permanent. The question now is whether the league will embrace it or continue to resist, whether media personalities will celebrate her achievements or continue to paint her as a villain. whether her own organization will properly support her or continue with lukewarm social media posts. As Clark sits out another game with her groin injury, as she watches her team struggle without her, as she sees herself being mocked and mischaracterized on the biggest stage in sports, one thing remains clear: she's not going anywhere. The villain narrative won't stick because the facts don't support it. The numbers don't lie, the fans don't lie, and eventually, the truth has a way of winning out. The 2025 WNBA season isn't over yet. Clark will return from injury. She'll continue breaking records. She'll keep filling arenas and driving TV ratings. And maybe, just maybe, the establishment will finally realize that she's not the villain of this story. She's the hero women's basketball has been waiting for. The question is whether they'll figure it out before it's too late. What happens next will define not just Clark's career, but the future of the WNBA itself. Will they continue to push away their biggest star, or will they finally embrace the revolution she represents? Time will tell, but one thing's for certain: Caitlin Clark isn't backing down, villain label or not. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this whole controversy. Is Caitlin Clark being unfairly targeted, or is there more to the story? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we'll be following this story as it develops. Until next time, keep supporting women's basketball, and remember, sometimes the biggest controversies reveal the most important truths.